wildfire.
Check the wildfire.
911 call.
Are we safe? All right.
The image that stuck out to you the most from this trip, like if you close your eyes and you recall this trip, like where does your mind go?
Good question. Are we starting? Did we hit record?
Oh yeah, we hit record a little while ago.
Recording.
Recording.
Oh, we're going?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I haven't been in my podcast state.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
also had your
headphones on. Got to get in podcast mode.
Yeah, let me get there.
It makes us more nervous. You know, Austin talks about the night, like hiking, like up and down a pass. I think for me, the image that sticks out in my head was at the top of the pass. And we know that's like our final, like, this is where we had to get to before we go downhill again. If you take a look up, if we had never hiked that late at night in the clear sky on top of, I don't know how high we were, 11,000, 12,000 feet. And the star view was insane. Like,
yeah, never seen the Milky Way belt.
Right.
and I didn't take a picture of it, but
Would it have like even come through on the camera?
I don't know. We have to do some sort of long exposure, but like it would have been.
But you guys could see it with your like naked eye,
very
like
clearly.
the galaxy spread across the wow.
Never seen so many stars.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
It was awesome.
So the stars like spread out over the sky like that. You you remember that vividly.
I think it was because it came at such a weird point in our trip where we're outrunning a mountain fire or a forest fire, and we're at the top of one of probably the hardest pass just because of all the variables and the elements that we had to do. And that was just like this really cool moment that we had to just relax. I say relax. It was cold and windy up there, but it was cool. So
I mean, I was so relaxed at that moment that just within a few minutes after that, I face planted onto the ground. So that's how relaxed I was.
Like lost your footing and
No, just tripped.
Okay.
Tripped and just like full out face plant. Not like kind of the stumble, recover, but just wow.
Ouch.
It's also like
I'm carrying
10:30.
Yeah. Then I'm carrying a backpack. So like the momentum of that comes up and throws me. Yeah, that was fun. But thankfully I was at the back at that point. So
you were.
Yeah, no one got to witness it. Praise God.
So we don't have any footage to
we don't
react
have
to on
that.
that one.
No.
Oh, unfortunate. Yeah, I can picture it in my mind. It sounds pretty funny.
Yeah, it was great. Good time.
So the image that comes to your mind, Austin, like from this trip, what is it? What sticks out?
Yeah, so for me, it would be whenever at night. Andrew's way more optimistic than I am. He's remembering the moment of the stars. For me, it was remembering the moment of looking down and, with the headlamp and everything, can see the path. And then turning to my left and just seeing nothing.
Mm.
And realizing we are on the side of a cliff at this point. I don't know how far down it goes, but further than my light can reach. And realizing we're all super tired, and I really hope no one slips.
Ugh.
So
this is in the middle of the night when you guys are at that moment.
Yeah.
We also don't have footage of that because
you're surviving.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
At that
unfortunate.
point, we're not thinking, let's get a video of this.
Yeah,
Let's take
it's
a
unfortunate
selfie.
that the most epic parts were the ones that we didn't get videos of because we're all having to focus and make sure that no one falls.
You guys seen the clips of the guys that are like a bear walks up and they're apparently got their phone out
that ain't
and
me.
they're just like, hey, look, it's a bear. And it's like, what are you thinking, dude? Get out of there. And they're just like have the most chill. I mean, they're probably inebriated by some substance.
It's true.
And reacting
high on
to
life.
this. Yeah. high on yeah, I don't know what they're high on, but I've seen multiple videos. I'm like, man, that guy is the chillest guy I've ever heard. Like,
Which brings
like
up to
interacting
the
with the bear.
sponsor of today's show.
Yep.
No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
Oh, dang it.
Everything is content, right, Ben?
No sponsor. No sponsor yet, but So Jacob, what image sticks out to you?
Outside of those
Extreme
scenarios. Actually, right before that, I got a picture of the moment that seared into my head we're again, quote unquote, outrunning a fire, and the sun's setting. We had to make the decision. We've got to keep going. And so I'm pretty tired. I'm pretty focused, but Derek had gotten ahead of everybody and was kind of up. We were going up. We weren't all very high, but we were up enough that the angle looked really good. And he, it's sunset, he turns around and like there's this silhouette, and then the smoke of the fire like is coming behind him, the orange sunset. And I'm like, this is a great photo. And so I took a picture of it. I don't know if Andrew, you could pull it up, but I actually got a picture of it. Me not being that much of a photographer, it's probably not a fantastic picture, but it's the moment that's like, this is actually really epic.
Yeah.
So that's the moment for me.
Obviously we're not going in sequence of order of events here, but you mentioned there was a fire. So this was from what I understand from what you guys have told me, this is a pretty critical moment in the trip and situation that you guys faced. So what happened with the fire, and then what was kind of the resulting decision you guys had to make? Like, who wants to jump in?
Start rolling on that. So our first 2 days were somewhat boring. It was there wasn't anything eventful. However, it was super windy, like 30 to 40 mile an hour gusts. And it wasn't cold, but it was cold enough that when the wind hits, it felt a lot colder than it was. And so it's just kind of just grinding, almost annoying. Austin has some takeaways from that.
Very annoying.
That time. And day 3, the first 2 days, we really hadn't gone as far as we wanted to. I think we hit like 12 and 14 miles between the 2 days, or 12 and 11 miles.
10 and 12, I think.
10 and 12. So we have almost 57 miles to get through in 4 days. And our first 2 days were kind of not as much, not as far as we wanted to go. And so we knew
what slowed y'all down. Was it the wind, or was it that was kind of the way those days went?
The wind contributed to it. But someone in our party was struggling. So one of the guys that came with us, it was more than he expected, and we were really high up. And so once when we camped at Trailhead at the very beginning of the trip, once we crossed over 10,000 feet in the first mile of the trip, we'd never went below 10,000 feet. So we're between 10 and 12,500 every day. And if your cardio is not fairly fit, that wears on you a lot. And add that to carrying 35, 40 pounds on your back, and just walking up and down and up and down, it can be exhausting. And so just,
and you guys are all
prepared.
Lowlanders. You've come from
600.
600 elevation up to over 10,000. Yeah, that's a drastic change. Yeah.
It can be. So we just, day 1, we ended pretty early just to rest a little bit. And then day 2, we didn't really push because it's just the way the mileage worked. If we would have pushed, it could have been a long push. And so we just made the call that day. So anyway, day 3, we go into it. And I honestly was thinking like, this has been really boring. Good in the sense of like, we're together. It's enjoyable.
You're out in the mountains.
It's a bit of a grind.
Jacob loves being around other people too. So that was...
I do.
So much fellowship.
There's so, on a side note, like,
he talks all the time. I'm like, Jacob, just
this is like
be quiet.
Ideal community, because we will circle at the end of the day and kind of talk for a little bit, but like as the day goes on, often like we'll go 2 hours and nobody says anything. So it's like we're together but we're alone because we're just pushing. Anyway, so day 3, we know we're gonna push, but we're pushing in the afternoon is when we get to a top of a pass, 12-2, 12-3, and we look out in the direction of where we're going, and we see there's smoke. So that's when we recognize.
There's a photo.
Okay. Yeah.
We're heading.
That looks like a wisp of cloud. No, sorry. Little Lord of the Rings.
That was great.
So
Not a cloud. Smoke.
When this image goes up, we're kind of having to go all the way to the right and then back to the left. And so it's in the it's within we know it's within a mile or two of the trail
of where you guys are going.
And
it's super windy that day too.
Yep.
So the smoke, the fire is to the south of us and the wind is out of the south and our trail has to pass to the north. So if you got your bearings with all of that, but point being,
So the wind is literally blowing the fire towards
us.
the path where you guys need to cross.
Yeah. And I can't remember what time this was after lunch, right? Was this after lunch or was this before lunch? Because lunch was when we're having to talk through, like, okay, we're not getting as far as we want, but we've really got to knock out some mileage today. So we see that, and I mean, just like standard, basic rules, like you don't outrun a fire like that, and so we don't know if they're trying to mitigate anything. So that's why we make a 911 call. We actually had signal at the very top of that pass. Funny though, Andrew first calls 911 and talking to the lady, getting the bearings, but we had kind of gone down a little bit and the call gets dropped.
Oh no.
So you get a 911 call dropped. And so we didn't know, like, do they call back? And so he's like having to warn his wife, hey, don't freak out. But if 911 calls,
your emergency contact.
We're fine.
So we go back up to the highest point where we know we have strong signal, and we make the call, give them our bearings, and they tell us.
So you got this moment.
It's a little bit of
kind
a
of
moment.
the end. That's kind of the end of the call.
So there's some wind noise in here, but we'll be able to get a little snapshot of what you guys experienced.
Are we safe?
You should be safe.
Okay. All right. Thank you. If it gets any closer to us while we're on the trail, we'll report it. Okay. Thank you. All right. Appreciate it. Bye.
should be right there at the end.
He's like, caveat it.
That's his clarification. You should be safe to proceed.
Should be safe to proceed.
Well, we actually, so we go another little while just up, but then we turn around, and where we came from, there's also smoke. Now we don't know if I didn't get really clear bearing on, is it near but we're more than halfway. So it's just as many miles back to where we were, there's no vehicles. Our vehicles are another 20 something miles ahead of us in the direction of this fire. And
what time of day is it when you guys recognize there's two fires?
What's the timestamp on that?
3:48, which would have been 2:48 there.
So so like early afternoon.
And we're how many miles? Maybe?
I mean, we're thinking we just have like, a few more miles left in the
day.
We're gonna make camp.
Right? Yeah. So did you showed the picture?
I mean, at that point we'd put in about 10 miles for the day, right?
At least, maybe a tad more. Because I want to say it was like 9 at lunch. We got 9 in at lunch. So we go for a couple hours. We see that, and we're like, we just don't have a choice. We've got to get past the danger zone. And Derek is telling us, like, guys, I'm not sleeping. Like, I can't sleep with there's a fire. So like, we might have to go all the way. Well, all the way we know is at least 30 miles total for what would have been 30 miles for it would have been like 32, 33 miles for the day.
All the way to the end.
Yeah,
So
all the way to the
getting to our
to the truck
cars
to get out of the path of the fire.
Yeah.
And
so we go, and we know, like, there's just no stopping until we know we're safe. We have a general sense of where that might be, but when we started looking at it, we realized, like, we're anywhere from we've gone about 10 miles. We're at least another 9 miles at least from where we need to be. And Andrew saved us many times with the GPX file that we had. He kept on his phone, and he always has the most up-to-date equipment of all of us. So he's able to keep track of all this stuff. And we recognize like it's 9, maybe more miles. And we have to, we had to go over 2 passes.
Yeah.
The rest of that
And
day.
another thing is there weren't a lot of campable areas.
Yeah.
So whenever we're looking at making the decision of do we stay here or do we keep going, we knew that the likelihood that, or the nearest campable area that we're going to come across is way out there. I mean, we're talking still.
So for people who don't know, why can't you guys just get off the trail and just camp? Like,
so in a lot of places, I mean, there's like it's not flat,
right.
and so you're walking along the ridge line of a mountain,
Right.
So there's just not enough space for you to be able to have a
nice
flat
edge.
enough area for a campsite.
So you're like literally there's no like open area to just go like, oh yeah, we'll just park here.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a combination of that and then the exposure piece where there may be spots where it could be flat enough, but you are at the top of that particular pass or mountain. And so you're completely exposed. Wind is going to really pick up there, as well as elevation. Your temperatures are going to be quite a bit cooler. So,
and then, lightning and all sorts of natural perils.
Yeah.
Because I think, if you've never done that before, like, why don't you think, oh, well, just stop and take shelter, duck and cover or whatever. But that's not an option where you guys like are at.
There were a few times when we were, we're not to that point yet, but there were a few times whenever there were some debates being had of, can we just camp here? And we're like, we gotta get going.
And that was the piece of we needed to get down specifically for our friend that was struggling.
Yeah,
it was not safe for him to stay at elevation.
That was Andrew's most passive aggressive moment in the entire trip. I mean, was
okay.
So this is not knife's edge. This is just an example of kind of things we were walking up.
So the terrain.
I mean, we're coming up that little. It looks very small from up here, and so there's nowhere we can really pitch 5 tents.
So for those of you listening to this, and you're like maybe checking this on the audio, hey, here's a good chance for you to go to YouTube and see these visual reinforcements. And while you're there, why don't you hit the like button and the subscribe button? That actually really helps us reach more people with this content. So if you're enjoying this story so far, let us know. Hit that thumbs up button. So so you guys are in the middle of a treacherous situation. There's a lot of heightened emotions, I imagine. Especially, I mean, you've got some experienced hikers on this trip. Andrew, this is your
technically my 1.5
time because you had to bail out early last time.
Yeah.
And we got that story on a previous episode if you guys haven't checked that out yet. But part of the context of this trip is you guys bring along a +1 and you kind of take responsibility for that person and you're trying to help them. Like, this is a physical challenge, probably beyond what a lot of people normally would just sign up for. And
definitely not a lot of people where we are,
right,
in the lowlands of
Southern
Oklahoma and Texas.
So what's going through y'all's minds, maybe some of you who have done this over and over, and you've got newer guys with you, you're not just feeling responsibility for your own life at that point. You're like, hey, I've got this person who I'm responsible for as well. And they may not even have the experience or the knowledge of what it takes to survive in this situation. So kind of what's going through y'all's minds, factoring those in, because you're like, what we thought was plan A was, go this far, find a spot to camp, rest up, and then keep going. All of a sudden, like, your day is like, there's no necessarily like clear end to when you guys are going to need to be able to stop. So I imagine that's a pretty daunting thing for somebody to feel.
Yeah. So David was Derek's +1, and day 2, and he was struggling. Derek is responsible, so he's trying to figure out, is this one of those? Do we One of the reasons why we love bringing +1 is what I know what I've discovered through these, and then bringing people. There's more in you than what you think. As soon as you think you want to stop, like the people who've done this or been there, like, no, we can go for it. We just know it. Now, there's sometimes you can see the visual indicators that we need to stop.
Yeah.
And Austin's +1 had all of those indicators, thankfully, at the beginning of the hike before we started, and he was able to get out. Those are things that you don't push through that. The kind of altitude sickness that he was experiencing, that you don't push through that.
Right.
But most of the time, like, there's just more in you. And so Derek was trying to figure that out and knowing how to push him, how to push David. And day 2, we kind of distributed some of his heavier items to lighten the load a little bit, to give him a chance to, instead of pushing and having all that heavy weight, lighten that weight and see how far we can push. And he said later, like, he was done at lunch that third day. But like, we're looking at it and seeing like where we need to go before the fire. And like, we were going to go a long way. So we distributed more weight, and we're just going to push through. And that's when here at that, like, we also knew the place in our on this trail that is the most like dangerous and gets talked about the most. It has its own name. It's called the Knife's Edge. I know I have a couple pictures from the Knife's Edge. Is ahead of us, and it's 2-3 o'clock, and we know we got to get through that by sundown, because you don't want to be doing something that dangerous in the dark. We did dangerous things in the dark just by climbing, because we had 2 passes. 2 times after 3 o'clock, we had to go over 12,000 feet, and we were, I don't know, somewhere in the 11,000 range. I don't think we dropped below 11,000 that day. I don't think so. And so we know we've got to go up over 1,000 feet and back down and then up again. And so we wanted to get one of those knocked out before sunset, and definitely get through Knife's Edge, because it's already pretty dangerous. A trail like this is not going to do something that like the high probability of dying. However, it is risky. And there is a possibility you slip and fall the wrong way. It's very dangerous.
Which Derek slipped multiple times
Oh,
on the
yikes.
Knife's Edge. So
Multiple times.
So like maybe twice, but 2 or 3 times
Ahead of us.
And it was one of those moments of he loses his footing and starts sliding down, and he's able to catch himself or grab something, and then we have to ask, are you able to get back on the trail on your own? Do we need to help you out? And both times he was able to climb his way back up, but those were a couple times where
like it hits home a little bit. It's like, yikes.
Yeah.
I mean, because Derek's probably done this more than all of
he's the
y'all,
most
because
experienced.
he like lived in the region for a while too.
Yeah.
So and so you see that happen, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, we better wake up, pay attention, and
I'm curious, Austin's take. One thing though that I would say that after doing this a number of years, for me, it's like we don't have a lot of options. So the one option we got to push through, it's more like, how do we do this as safe as possible? Because we all had a sense of like, we need to hurry. We need to not get in a hurry and make dumb mistakes, but we don't need to take this slow.
Yeah.
We don't need to stop a lot. We've got to keep moving. And particularly David was struggling to just keep moving. And so it's that tension of like, how much do we push? How much do we be patient? But the objective is to get home safely. So we know we can't push too hard or in the name of being in a hurry, make a really dumb mistake.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, Jacob already hit it, but having the feel for, what is actual physical limitation and then what's a mental limitation. So when somebody's struggling with something mentally versus there was an instance a few years ago where my +1 like was physically shutting down at one point and couldn't keep his eyes open. Just there were multiple reasons for that, but that was in that situation, gauging it and going, at that point we were halfway through and we have to it's as hard to go forward as it would be to go back at this point. And so at that, with handling that situation, it was let's get to the top of this pass. We'll carry your pack up there, sit down, get calories in you, because that was part of his problem. And so then once he got calories, we were able to finish it out.
And that's the odd thing, that if you don't do this very often, you don't really recognize is you're burning a significant amount of calories through the day,
right?
But it doesn't always mean you get hungry. Sometimes you're really having to force the calories in,
right?
And so if you're not used to that, you don't know how much to put in, you don't know how to feel that, you kind of just don't refuel enough. And that was one of his problems, was he just didn't recognize that just because you're not hungry doesn't mean you don't eat. You've got to get calories in, because that is the fuel for you to be able to do this.
Yeah. So with this particular situation, it, knowing that there is no other way but forward, it was difficult and challenging, but our mentality was pretty optimistic in terms of, we can do this. This is something that we're going to do, and we're going to do it together, and helping each other out when we need it. But simultaneously with the optimism, having the situational awareness of the things that we can and cannot do. And so we cannot camp in the path of this fire.
Right.
We've got to push on, just things like that.
Right. So you guys make the decision. You have to get to safety. So that means going forward an indeterminate number of miles. You kind of think maybe 9 to 10 miles, somewhere in there is kind of the first window. So you guys make that decision, resolve to do it. What do you encounter for the rest of that day? Because obviously you guys thought you were, maybe a few miles from camping, and then all of a sudden oh no, we've got to push further. So what do you run into?
We go. There was a couple of cool moments of just we're going around the knife's edge, and that's where your focus has to be very heightened. Again, Derek slips a couple times.
Yeah. So we make this turn, and we see
is this the knife's edge?
This is
this
the
photo here?
Yeah, the beginning of it. Okay. It's to the left. Yeah,
gotcha.
So if you see this little you can see where it splits. You're basically there's this downhill and then the cliff face, and so you have
you're butted up against the cliff, and there's probably 18 to 24 inches.
You're going around this entire bend right here, so you can't. It's hard to see from this angle, but you're going all
and
the way
a couple times there's overgrowth, and so you kind of have to go around the overgrowth by holding on to it.
And you guys are racing against the sunset at this point, because there's the potential the sun goes behind.
Yeah,
and you can't. I mean, you're in the dark at that point.
Was part of our motivation for that one thing, is we know this is the most dangerous part of the trail. We have to beat the sunset to get there. But cool, right as we rounded the edge, we saw, was it a moose and
a couple moose,
a herd of
some
or
deer,
a small,
it was
small herd of deer.
That's cool.
A couple hundred
feet,
a couple 100 feet down. I mean, where you're up, elevated very high, so we're at a safe distance. But it was really beautiful, which was one of the possibilities of where you could camp, but this is way down there. That's not an option. And we're still in the path of this fire. So we get around that and okay, now that was beautiful. That was also dangerous. And we got to book it now.
Yeah. And so time wise, how long did that take? Are you guys close to sunset at that point, or
we're getting close? It wasn't
5:30 when we're going around that.
We were in the shade at that point.
Yeah.
Is it getting cold?
My photo is the sun is just about to go underneath the where we're under that cliff face at 5:30. And so it's gonna, in the mountains, depending on where you're at, you could stop seeing the sun by 6:30, 7 sometimes. We thought we would have enough daylight till about 8:30, and so we just start pushing, knowing we have to get we looked at the elevation profile, and there are 2 passes that we have to get through. So we go around the knife's edge, and there's 2 passes. So we know we're going up, down, up again, and down before we felt good like we would be out of the path, which was going to end up being a number of miles. And we knew we were going to be making one of these passes in the dark.
Yeah. And how's David doing at this point?
Well, he was done at lunch.
Yeah.
And we're 6 hours later.
Yeah.
So,
and this is David's first trip like this, right? Like
Yes.
this is, So, enthusiastic beginner, just like jumping in like, hey, yeah, I want to be a part of this.
little
Sounds
trepid, but
Yeah.
excited. And then
Yeah.
like definitely by the end of day 2, it's like,
Yeah.
what did I do?
Yeah.
So we're pushing. You got a really great sunset on one of the
Is
passes.
this one or
Either one of those.
so this shows this is a sunset photo. This is on one of the passes we got up. It'd be the first one.
the first
on
of
the
the
way
2
up.
passes.
And this right here is smoke from that fire. So
Oh,
we're
Yeah,
wow.
that's not
Still-
a cloud. That's smoke.
Wow.
and we could feel for the most of that, the rest of that day, we felt ash, or we could see ash floating
Yeah.
because the wind was just throwing
Yeah,
it our way.
The part before this, whenever we were, when we stopped and collected water, it was this weird thing of we are on, we have a mountain ridge between us and the fire, but the smoke was coming directly over us at that point, as opposed to like in that picture, it's kind of off to the side. But there was a moment where we had stopped to get water and the smoke is just coming directly overhead and we can't see what's on the other side. So it was
Yikes.
kind of an eerie feeling.
So that's definitely like giving you indication that you don't want to bet on this one. To play it safe, the fire's on the other side of that ridge, and you need to keep moving.
Yeah.
It might not have been, but with this, the thing that smoke is coming right over us. So we go up that pass, and that's where my picture was iconic in my mind. It's just like it was really epic. And so we're down again, and the sun's setting, or almost set, and that's when we're like, we really don't have any more options. Like, we're not going as fast as we want. David, on top of that pass, that first pass when the sun's setting, is when like any of our foods, what do you want? What
Right.
even remotely sounds good? Take that. Here's a bar.
Yeah.
Here's this kind of bar.
Just
Here's
trying
this
to
kind
fill
of
them
flavor.
up with calories.
Just getting them, just a few hundred calories would have
Yeah.
been enough, just to, because he's just tired
moving, yeah.
and he just doesn't have energy, and like, we don't have an option. We've got to keep moving.
Yeah.
So we get down, and then like the sun sets, and
Which
we're
right before then
miles.
was beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Like that dusk with the purple in the air. Like
and
it
the
just
smoke in the sky diffusing the light.
Absolutely
Beautiful.
absolutely beautiful.
You got some pictures. We need to.
Beautiful and dangerous.
There's
Yeah.
somewhere in our album is some really good pictures.
Yeah, I don't know if it's syncing all of them. That's my thing. But
So
like,
we'll in post if we we'll take the
Yeah.
time to put up some. Wow, yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was really cool. Especially like
So
If
turn that so we have a little bit of a reference, so Ben can add the right photo in post. But yeah,
So like
that's
if
cool.
if you don't associate smoke with danger,
Yeah.
is gorgeous.
yeah, that's
But
awesome.
it's dangerous. And so again, we're like, we don't have enough. We got to get over this pass. No matter how long it takes, no matter how dark it gets, we've got to get over this pass because there's nowhere to camp in between that's safe.
Right.
And so we push through, and it gets dark, and it gets really dark because, again, there's smoke. And right as the sun sets and it's getting dark, everybody's got their headlamps on. We start seeing the flakes of what's in
The
front of you,
ash.
and it's ash.
Yikes.
So whatever's
burning
it's coming your way.
Yeah. Okay. So this is in the dark.
this is on our way down.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So this has got some audio. Let's take a listen.
Oh, my heavy breathing too.
So this is the trail.
Down.
This is what you guys are seeing. So you look to the right. There's nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And nothing to the left.
And that wasn't
Wow.
the most treacherous part. Like
No.
the image that burned into your head was like,
That was as
Mountain
we
on
were
one
coming
side,
up
yeah.
on the pass. That was
Yeah.
on
So-
our way down.
That's
So
all
when we're going up, we're having to go up. I can't remember what the elevation profile was from base to top, but it was at least 600-700 because I want to say that the final pass was 12.4. I want to say that's
pulling up the elevation.
so it's like 12.3, 12.4, and we were at least 11.4, 11.5. So we're going up maybe 1,000 feet. And when, in the day, it's already hard. And for me, like you have some sense of like, that's where I'm going.
You can see the goal.
Far I got to get.
Yeah.
And that's how many switchbacks there are. And when it's dark, like we can only see maybe 3 steps ahead of us.
Yeah.
And Austin was leading the way on that. And so you just have lights and you start looking like that video showed to the left and right. You just really don't see much.
Yeah.
You can see the mountain a little bit up and you look down and it's not a lot. You don't see hardly anything. And then the higher you get, just by nature of these kind of trails, the higher you get, the more dangerous they get because they're on the side of a mountain. So you might have the mountain on one side, but then it's a drop on the other. And during the day, you kind of have a sense of what that is and how to be safe. At night, when it's just your headlamp, you have like 3 steps ahead of you, and that's it. That's all you can see.
So how do you guys get a sense of progress? Is it just tracking GPS?
Andrew's
your sense of progress?
I bring to the table.
About every 15 minutes. How we doing, Andrew? Where are we at? Yeah. Twice, somewhere in the dark, at least twice, maybe 3 times, we lost the trail.
Wow.
And usually it was Andrew that's like, hey guys, I think we're off a bit. Because there's many times when you're on trail, there's footpaths or sometimes converging trails where you don't know exactly which way to go.
Yeah, which one's the main one, which one's not.
So
and especially in the dark, like you're just guessing.
Yeah, and then sometimes you're going over rocks and you can't see where the path is. In the day, you kind of look ahead, you get off a little bit, but at night, so we're already having to go slower. David is struggling and we've distributed all his weight. Austin finally took his pack during the day just to give him, it's just him and water walking. And we're climbing that mountain. And again, like there's just, you have to take all other options off the table. You have one option, and that is to keep moving. And we're all, because it's dark, we know we can't spread out. We've got to stay pretty tight. And David he's not able to go super fast. So we move, stop. And then there was, as we were reaching the top, we kept hollering, like Andrew kind of had to keep his phone out because sometimes the path winds and Austin's kind of like, is it up here? Because he's ahead. There was at least one time going up that pass, I remember, or David, we're like 10:30. We've been going since 7 a.m., 7:30 that morning. And we're 20-ish miles in.
Yeah.
And so David was done at mile 9. So he's put in 11 more miles
than what he had expected, he mentally prepared for
the day,
committed to at that point. Yeah.
And we're going up.
Yeah.
What's after up is down until we find a spot. So and I do remember it was a pretty tight area and like it was a pretty big drop off. And I was, at that point, I was right behind David, and David's kind of like in that like tired. At some point when you're tired, you just start like dragging your feet. You're just kind of making yourself move. You don't even really think about steps. You're just moving. And like I was right behind him, and I kept one of my trekking poles out just in case I gotta like hit him back because if he just fell over, he's going down really far. But that was when like we get to the top, we're all really tired, and it could have been a lot worse. We all make it, and everybody's got decent spirits. And that's when Andrew said like we're not going to get an opportunity to like this very often. So we turn off our headlamps and we just look up, and, because there's no light pollution. There's not a town anywhere around for miles and miles and miles.
Yeah.
Our lights are it. We turn those off and you look up, and I've never seen that many stars.
Wow.
It was beautiful.
Wow.
It was awesome.
That's crazy. So I know at some point in this story, you guys get stalked by mountain lions. Has this begun at this point, or is this coming up?
Yeah. So at this point, we're coming down, and at this, we're saying the first campable area we get to, once we get back below tree line and everything, first campable area we get to, let's set up camp.
Yeah. That's what.
Well, as we're going down,
Yeah.
David is like begging Derek, can we stop here? And it's like 11,900 feet. It is not a good place to stop.
Yeah.
And we're like, maybe we could probably survive at this. And Derek's like, no, we won't survive here. We're going down.
Yeah.
So he's already like, we're at like, I don't know, 10:30 p.m., maybe 11. So that's when like we're tired. We're wanting to get to a destination, and David is just like begging, like, please, please, I can't move. Like, and we're just like, that's not really an option here. So, so the thinking is first campable spot.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're going down, and then we find this area that looks like it could be, it's got good potential.
Yeah.
So I walk over, get off trail, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, hey guys, this looks like this is going to make a great campsite. Except there's a pair of eyes.
It's in the same
right
breath
there.
you said that. You said, except there's eyes looking
You
at
didn't
me.
even finish to say, this is a great camp,
no.
except for those pair of eyes right there.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
And so, sure enough, we all throw our lights over in that direction,
Yeah.
and Derek goes, yeah, like trying to
Yeah.
spook it off, and it doesn't even blink. It just crouches down. And at this point, we're like, yeah, this is a cat. And plus, like, we had been seeing cat sign like on the trail, and I kept thinking, like there's got to be some cats around here, because I mean it was just all over the place. And so anyway, once it like didn't react at all to us trying to spook it, and
Not
it just
intimidated.
crapped down, we're like, okay, yeah, we're just gonna keep moving.
Yeah.
This is his spot. And so
We had come downwind of it. And so we outside, I mean, and we weren't.
we have the wind to our face. So as we're walking up, our scent's not being blown in the direction of any animal that
and
we
we're
would be
and we're so
encountering.
tired. It's not like we're making tons of noise. We're not talking and
Right,
chatting.
right.
We're just moving.
So to that
it's-
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, after we have this cat encounter, we have, and there's a couple guys in the group that have guns. And so once we encounter this mountain lion, I go ahead and rack my pistol.
Yeah.
And I have it out, like, in case this thing comes at us.
Yeah.
We gotta,
I mean, you got to
we gotta
defend
shoot it.
yourself. Yeah.
Well, my plan is, this is its habitat, unless it threatens us, I really don't want to shoot it. Meanwhile, there were some other guys in our group that had a different perspective
Approach.
on this. And so, I have a couple guys that are like, just shoot it. Just shoot it.
Fire off a
Yeah.
pop shot.
Pop shot. Warning shot.
Warning
let-
shot.
Across the nose.
Let me add one more layer to this. On the way down, Andrew and I are kind of at the back. Andrew slips and cuts himself.
Oh no.
So we actually
Blood
have to
in
make
the
a
water.
stop.
Yeah.
We have to make a stop. It wasn't bad, but it was bad enough. It needed
dress
to be
it, yeah.
tended to. It needed to
Yeah.
be dressed.
So what did you think at that time, Andrew? Like you
I was
just,
like, it smells blood.
oh, man.
So yeah, that's running through my head. I'm like, okay, it's got my scent for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So how bad was the cut? Like
So,
just sort
like-
of surface level, or do you have to?
So when I was looking at when I first I gashed it against a rock,
Yeah.
I looked at it, I was like, okay, like it kind of looks like one of those cuts where it's like it takes a second for it to start bleeding a lot.
Yeah.
So it was like I could see it looks kind of bad. So we just field dressed it real fast.
Yeah.
And then kept moving.
Yeah. At night, it's not the time to just push through on a potential,
Sure. Yeah.
like, because it would not
It
take
was-
much
yeah.
to get infected in that kind of environment. And it was enough that it was actually bleeding. So, so it was just best that we just stop really quickly, address it.
Well, it didn't hurt. Like it didn't affect my walking. It was fine. It was just I just needed it to stop bleeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop
So-
leaving a trail for
Yeah.
for the predator to follow.
Once we got within wind,
Yeah.
it smelled blood.
Yeah. So at that point, we decided, let's go ahead and move on from here.
Yeah.
So I was in the front. I have a firearm. Derek was in the back. He has a firearm. So
And the snack is in the middle.
in the
I had-
snacks
I had
in the
bear
middle.
spray.
We were surrounding him. Andrew had the bear spray. So anyway, Derek's watching our six. We keep moving forward, and
At this point, David is wide awake.
oh yeah. So David,
Yeah,
this was
David
the
went
best.
from I'm ready to just fall over. I
Right,
don't need a
right.
tent to like alert times 4.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
just he is fully awake. He is looking. His
Yep.
eyes are
Oh.
everywhere.
Yeah. So after that
You got
point,
more in you than you knew. You just need a mountain lion to motivate.
Yeah. So as we're going, I mean, if there is a living creature within a mile of us, David has spotted its eyes. I mean, there was one point
Seeing
where,
eyes everywhere.
oh yeah. I mean, there was, and he's seeing eyes everywhere. And then at one point, Derek's like, I can't remember if Derek said this before or after we encountered the mountain lion. He said, guys, it's the woods, okay? There's gonna be eyes out here. and then after we ran into our second mountain lion is whenever I think we were just like, all right, we need to start making noise as we go. Because again, so we leave the area from the first mountain lion, we run into another one.
Well, and the first one, it does. I don't know if it follows us as much as it just kind of walks with us for a little bit, and then we just don't see it anymore.
Yeah.
Which is worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was
It's
a period like when we
making
were
a plan of attack.
Yeah, when we were walking away.
And this is still in the dark.
Oh yeah, complete. I mean,
yikes.
Yeah, super dark. So as we're going, guys are like, it's over behind that tree now. And so we shine lights, we see its eyes, and we're like, okay, we just got to keep going, just got to keep moving. And then eventually we run into another one, and we sit there for a little bit trying to spook it off. It doesn't come at us or run away, so we just decide to keep going.
And we started a musical after that.
Yeah.
point.
So at this point, Derek went from, guys, there's going to be animals in the woods. So now he's like leading the song. He was our song leader there for a bit. So,
and the idea is to like make noise so animals know you're coming,
right,
and
Make a
potentially get
presence known.
spooked off before.
Almost always, any attack, they're not addressing us as food. That's survival is mostly what would be coming after us.
Unless we're in grizzly country, in which case they'll just eat you for fun.
Yeah.
But we didn't have grizzly around us. So anyway, we're now, David is totally awake. Everyone's got this new energy and we are just plugging along. And so eventually.
So like to try to bring the viewers, listeners into this, like, think of this. We have been going for the total of the day was 24 miles. Andrew's got our profile for his.
This is the Apple Fitness stats. This is Andrew's track here.
We have gone 24 miles.
Wow.
And it is it's like 11 o'clock on the last hour. So we ended the hike. You can look at the time. It says 1 o'clock.
It's in his calories burned. Let's go, Andrew.
Yeah.
Come on, baby.
Like
Andrew, almost 5,000 calories.
Almost 5,000 active calories. Almost, so 4,678 feet of elevation gain. That's up, down, up, down.
Which, we were trying to figure out. Austin's was tracking a little differently. We're trying to figure out how it's. Yeah. But it's something like that. It's crazy.
So we ended the hike at midnight. That's in Mountain Time. Mm-hmm. This is what you see is in Central. It was in Mountain Times. We ended so around 11 o'clock. So we're at 11:30. Mm-hmm. We've been hiking since 7:30 in the morning. We stopped a full stop only twice. So like full stop, take all of our packs off and rest for half an hour or so. That's only happened twice that day. So we're 20 plus, we're probably 22, 23 miles in, 11 o'clock, just had climbed through the day 3, maybe 4 times over 12, but definitely 3 times, once in the dark. We're tired. Adrenaline is pumping because there are cats around.
Right.
And if they want to, they can attack and they will get one of us. Maybe not kill us, but they will get us. So like high alert, like that is a powder keg of just being jerks to one another and like anger or something flying. And like the worse it gets is a disagreement on firing a warning shot and Andrew getting passive aggressive. Like
classic 9 maneuver.
That's the worst
but
it
just
gets.
one passive aggressive comment. That's
it. Was just one.
Yeah. What was it?
I think it was at the very end when he was like, "Oh, this camping spot's not good enough," and we're like, I'm like, we could do this for like, we could keep saying these camping spots aren't good for another 3 hours.
Yeah.
And this is and at that point, I'm like, you know what? I know I'm being passive aggressive. Like, I'm tired.
Immediately accepting responsibility.
Yes.
For,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it could have been much worse.
Yeah. So we get to campsite and it's right by a creek, and there is just enough room for all of our tents and Derek's little bivvy.
And just enough room means Andrew and I want to say Austin's tent are basically within 24 to 36 inches of water. You're supposed to camp like 20 to 50 yards from water. It's like within 3 feet. So if the creek goes up, 2 or 3 of us are in the water. And Derek's bivvy is partially in the trail.
It's on the trail.
So when we say this is enough room for our campsite, it's because we're all on top of each other and we are making negotiations as to what's acceptable. And
Yeah.
Some compromise.
And a couple guys claim that the creek rose a little bit during the night. So
I had dreams of it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I actually have let me see if I still have a voice memo of what you could hear, just because, we're in tents and there's like no sound barrier there.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to
So
say,
you just like recorded some of the sound
and I don't have, it's not connected to Bluetooth, so I'm just going to play it in
just
my
play
mic.
play in your mic. Oh, it's so peaceful.
isn't that peaceful?
And then you've got the mountain
So
lion.
easy to go to sleep too. I think I actually slept pretty decent that night. You know, going to bed at 1 after hiking 24 miles. I think I actually slept.
So you tracked your sleep for the first time this trip, and so you showed us a little graph ahead of time. So was that from one of the previous nights that was just awful?
So for audience, Austin is a terrible sleeper on the mountain. He does not sleep well.
Yep.
And
you've got evidence to show.
This is one of his evidences.
So
orange is bad.
Up to this point, I was thinking maybe it's not as bad as I think.
Actually, that's the night before.
It's the night before we went up.
Night before I hiked 24 miles. That's what it looked like.
Oof.
So I thought, maybe it's not as bad. Maybe I'm only awake 30 minutes throughout the night. It just feels like forever until I started tracking it and I realized, no, I'm awake as much as I am asleep.
On the mountain, you're probably going to go to sleep potentially earlier than what you would at home. No artificial light. So, you're going to bed pretty early. And if you go to sleep, like you think you're asleep for a while, and it's inevitable between the exposure and the moonlight, the sounds, you're going to wake up a couple times. And the worst thing you can do sleeping in the mountain is look at your clock.
Oh yeah. Because then it's like,
you think you've been asleep for like 6 hours and it might be time, and you've been asleep for like an hour.
Yeah. It's like 11 p.m.
And Austin is the worst at this.
Looks like you went to bed about 8 o'clock that night, 8 p.m. Mountain time.
So, and that particular night, if you'll notice, I'm awake for there's 3 hours
of just a solid
I'm awake
that you're just
for
awake
3 hours. So what happened that night was I wake up to something barking.
Oh no.
And at first I'm thinking, okay, that's annoying. It's probably another camper's dog or something, whatever. And then it just keeps going, and then it starts getting closer, and I start thinking, no, that's like a coyote or a wolf or something. I don't know. But so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go ahead, and this thing is keeping me up. So I'm going to do the typical dad move, which is I'm going to go address it. And so I grab my gun and I crawl out of the tent real slow, and I get behind this tree, and I'm thinking like, there's going to be just this massive wolf, out there just ready to jump me. So moon was super bright that night. So I just kind of sit there for who knows how long, just trying to see if I can see this thing, never get eyes on it. And it just kept yapping over and over. Meanwhile, these yahoos are sleeping
just
like
snoring through it all.
I was awake. I was thinking
Andrew was awake with
Austin just got to have his tent.
Yep. So anyway, so I tried to see if I could find it. Never did, but it definitely wasn't another camper. One of the nice things about where we go is like we didn't see anyone else
After day 2?
No.
Yeah.
So knew that it wasn't somebody's dog. So it was probably a coyote barking. But anyway, get back into the tent. And then I apparently just lay there for a few more hours.
On alert. That was the same-
solving world hunger problems.
Yeah,
and
that's pretty much it.
Yeah. That same night, it was the same night we heard like the really like the pack was first. Do you remember? Did you wake
Yeah.
up to that where it was like a pack of coyotes
Yeah.
kind of like yelping, and then after that was this cadence of this one single.
Just nonstop, and it wasn't too far from us.
No, it felt close, obviously.
So back to the
I
long
slept-
day.
I slept 7 hours that same night.
Nice.
That's ridiculous.
You had 3 hours on.
So
on
that's
Austin.
ridiculous.
I don't have a lot of talents.
Yeah,
all
but you
right?
can sleep
And
anywhere.
I don't have a lot of talents that are profitable in the mountains. One of them is that I can sleep. And I'll wake up a bunch of times. That showed I woke up probably 12, 15 times that night. But the one thing I can do is I can make myself go back to sleep.
I hate you guys.
So
Yeah.
you guys have made it through. You find a place to camp, and the viability of this camping spot obviously is just enough for you guys to all to fit, and then you get to the end of the day. So the sort of to round out the trip, is there any more like perilous moments, or is it all pretty much downhill from there? Like how close did y'all end up making it to the end in that day?
We were 9 miles from
Okay.
our car.
Yeah.
So we had 9 miles the next morning.
So the next morning we wake up, get on trail, and then not 200 yards, somewhere between probably 100 and 200 yards from where we camped, there was a bull moose on the same creek
Wow.
that we had camped on, just 100 or 200 yards downstream. And for those who don't know, bull moose are super aggressive, and so that was that could have been a great wake up call.
Oh man.
Staring us down.
if we would have slept in another hour because it was heading in that direction slowly.
Gotcha.
If we'd have woke up another hour.
Y'all might have had an encounter. Okay, so you got a little photo.
Yeah,
Looks like a little speck on the screen, but we can zoom in there.
they are
Ooh.
huge.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
Huge.
seven
with
and a half feet tall.
Last year's episode, we played a little clip of an encounter you guys had on a previous expedition.
Yeah,
Mhm.
But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So it wasn't particularly threatening when we encountered it.
Yeah.
It was very, the potential for the threat was really extreme.
So the most eventful day is behind you. You guys, you see the finish line. What is the group morale at this point? You guys have actually, like, you've woke up and it's like, hey, we're finishing this out. How's David doing? How's Andrew doing?
Yeah. So Austin and I had a funny conversation because every year, whenever they get off trail, like we just go get grab a bite to eat, and it's obviously usually a burger or something, very
Hearty.
robust, hearty, because you've just been walking for a long time. And
Yeah, this was great.
We've already started talking about this burger we're going to eat off trail, and Austin just stops like, we're such dudes. Like, we just walked 24 miles, outrunning fires and mountain lions, and all we can talk about the next morning is this burger.
Yeah, we just totally moved on from
Yeah.
everything that had happened the day before. And it's like, man, I can't wait to eat today.
That's the morale. That's the morale.
That's where we
We weren't very reflective
Yeah.
in that moment.
No philosophy going on, just
No.
base level hunger
Yeah.
driving you guys. Yep.
Yeah, because that's what's getting us to the
Yeah.
truck. And
Morale was great the next day.
Yep.
I mean, and it was the last day was literally downhill.
All day.
I mean, there were a few spots where we had to, go up some. I would say there were a lot of false endings at the end. Like, I don't know which director is notorious for having false endings, but
well,
whatever.
The one that comes to mind is the Return of the King.
Yeah,
there's
that one.
there's 6 of them in
Yeah.
there. or
So
something.
the last day was Return of the King style, where we're like, okay,
Fade
we're
to black.
here.
Oh no,
It's almost
we're
there.
not,
Got another couple miles.
we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we finished it out and got to the truck, and man, that was a great feeling.
Yep.
It was because it was one downhill run. The three of us just kept our own pace moving forward, and Derek walked with David on that pace, and that's when they spent a little more time reflecting and talking about why we do this and what is it that we enjoy about it. It's being as though some of it's boring, some of it is beautiful, some of it's very dangerous. Like, why do we do this from Oklahoma and Texas, go out and do this? So they got a little more reflection. I just wanted to get to the car. We just booked it.
Yeah.
So trip, obviously a success. You guys all survived. You didn't burn alive inside a forest fire. You didn't get eaten. Didn't get eaten by mountain lions.
No.
So, and different levels of struggle across different party members on the journey. So, takeaways from this trip, things that you've learned, things that you experienced. I think we had some shared, even from David. Producer Ben back there may be able to share some of those with us, but what jumps to mind as far as anything maybe unique about this trip, or if it's not unique, just something that you're taking away from it that you learned and that you want to integrate?
I've spent the last year getting more fit.
Mm-hmm.
Last year's hike, it was only a couple months that I had been really working on getting more fit,
mm-hmm.
and it was night and day different. For me physically, how much more physically fit I was, that outside of that one day just feeling tired, like I felt great the entire trip. And so that was teaching me a lot about like just preparedness and being fit for whatever comes. But that was just personal from like the trip itself. This was a unique year in that like enough of us were fit enough to help the person struggling. And so like there was no shame. No one wanted to make David feel bad. We weren't guilt tripping anything. We weren't even internally guilt tripping. It very much was like, hey, we got a brother, like there's no option. We've got to go through this trail. What can we do? We can distribute this load. We can carry the, and like, I felt good in that, like definitely 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been a help.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could have carried anymore. And so that was an encouragement for me. It's okay. My fitness can help others in their moment of weakness, and it not be like you should get more fit.
Right.
It's very much like we wanted to help, and he needed help to get through this. Yeah. And we wanted him to finish. I wanted him to finish and be proud of finishing.
Yeah.
So that was a big one in just like, we've been helpful to each other in trips past. This one was very much like we really have to carry this person's load in a way for him to make it, and we get to do this. It was hard, but it wasn't without some joy and like sense of like we really want to help.
Yeah,
and he's even saying, "No, please don't. Y'all don't have to do it." Like, no, we want to.
Yeah.
Bear each other's burdens was thrown out a couple times.
I very much did throw it like, hey guys, we're kind of under commandment, bear one another's burdens.
Yeah. There was one point, this isn't a takeaway, but I forgot to share this. There was one point where Andrew and I were trying to find water, because another unique thing about this trip was the water sources were not as available as they had been in the past. So we're trying to find water. We walked down to one of these lakes, and we're like, I normally like to use running water, but we're up here in this altitude. I'm sure it's fine.
Spring water, not like a faucet.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I normally like indoor plumbing out here in the mountains. But, so anyway, we're like, this will work. So we walk up to the lake to start collecting water. In the exact spot where we walked up to, there's this dead rodent sitting in it, just really like
marinating.
Yeah. I mean, it was bloated. It was bad.
I was like, Austin, what is this? Like, what am I looking at here?
Then what I end up doing is Jacob and I end up walking, was it a mile back uphill because we had passed a water source, but on the map it showed that we were camping near water. The water that we were camping near had dried up. So I thought, turns out there was some. I just couldn't find it. I'm notoriously bad at finding things. Ask my wife. And then so after I get back from walking 2 miles, Andrew's like,
found water right here.
The water.
I was trying to find a bathroom spot.
so should we? Yeah, I don't know. Should we tell this part?
I can tell.
Okay,
I can tell this part too. So
this is your story.
Without getting too I was like, do I bring this up? Sorry, Grace. When you're in the woods, when you're on trail, you go to the bathroom, no matter what number it is.
Yeah.
where you have to. And so when you're on trail,
you're processing 6,000 calories. Yeah.
Things come out at you. So you have to dig a hole and you make sure that it's like all properly, like you're far enough away from camp that like, you got some privacy, all this stuff. And so, we had decided at this particular camp spot to kind of camp over on this hill. We had left another hill that had like maybe one spot, like kind of open. So I'm like down closer to a lake next to that hill where none of us are. And I dig a hole and I don't feel like ready to go yet. So I just leave that hole there. I'm just like, hey, this is a good spot. Cool, whatever. I'm like, whenever I'm ready, it's ready. So I go down. Yeah, I like it. I go down there later probably after dinner or something like that. I'm getting ready to go to the bathroom and to put it bluntly, bare all. And I hear something at that other camp spot and some dude is behind us setting up his tent in full view of me. And I'm like, well, I just lost my urge. Luckily I was just going number one at that point.
Okay.
And I hadn't just squatted down to do anything yet. So
Yeah. Also, along those same lines, where I think I can't remember what day this was, but we're on trail and I've got to use the restroom. So I just step off to the side of the road, find a tree, whatever. I'm literally just one step off of trail and going number one. And then I hear someone say, Austin. And I'm like, what's going on? So I turn around and these people are walking or they're coming up on horseback. And I'm sitting here peeing. And these people trot by on their horses. And I'm just like, how's it going, guys? Howdy.
Worst timing ever.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to go. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
It's bad to hold tension when you're hiking.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what we always say.
Yeah. So anyway, back to takeaways.
Yep.
I can go. So one of my takeaways was after the first day. So within the first few hours of the first day, we had mentioned that it was super windy, and Jacob, being the nerd that he is, brought a little weather gauge to attach to his backpack so that we can, measure temperatures and wind and all that stuff. So anyway, I'm sure he's already put it into a spreadsheet, but
for reflection,
of course. And so cold, super, super windy, and the wind just never let down.
Kind of cloudy too.
5 to 15 miles an hour consistently all day with 30 to 40 mile an hour gusts.
Yeah. So just, I found myself within the first few hours going, why am I doing this? And, it was interesting to me that I was asking that question because this is a thing that I love to do. And I was around people that I can tolerate and, beautiful place, doing something I love to do. And I still found myself having the thoughts of, I don't want to be here. Mm-hmm. What am I doing? And so one of my takeaways was how important conditions are, and how you can be in a place that you love, around people you love, doing something you love. But if the conditions aren't ideal, you can find yourself having those questions of, what am I doing? Why am I here? And it's not the place, it's not the people, it's just the conditions. And so that awareness of, I think it could be really helpful for people. It was helpful for me walking away from that going, sometimes if I find myself, having a hard time struggling, asking those questions, it may not be where I am, who I'm doing it with, what I'm doing. It may just be the conditions.
Yeah.
And conditions are temporary. So it may be, as opposed to just thinking, I need to be somewhere else, I need to be around other people, I need to be doing something different. It may be just the conditions are hard right now. Stick with it. And the next day, it was still windy, but it wasn't as cloudy. And so the next day, beautiful views, better conditions. And it was just kind of like, this, I love doing this, love being here. And so that was one of my takeaways.
I don't know if you can bring it up. Some of the best pictures were within the first couple of days on that ridge.
Mount Hope.
Where we climbed, pretty much we climbed the first mountain.
Some foreshadowing there.
Is that one of them?
No, I
That's
think
from day two.
Yeah,
That's day
from
two.
Day two, Beautiful Lake.
I can't remember. What's that?
Austin, all
Oh,
got
you talking about
the good like post picture on the edge. I think that one's it right there.
This one.
Yeah, this is Andrew's
Oh, nice.
podcast poster board.
Yeah, maybe that'll be our thumbnail. Who knows?
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, Andrew, you look pretty fit there, man.
This is pre-gash, pre-mountain lion, pre-fire.
Those calves are impressive. Tell you what, he couldn't even fit them into pants. He had to rock the shorts the whole time.
Which is why I cut myself a lot.
Yeah, I don't have that problem.
There's a takeaway.
So, from the perspective, so obviously, David and Derek couldn't join the podcast today to share their perspective, but David did give us some of his takeaways. Ben, you want to hand those to me? We want to give David honor. I mean, like, he made it through.
He made it.
As difficult as it was. So some of his takeaways were like, the experience was wild. There's no one to pick you up. Like, there's no escape hatch. There's no push a button.
Just clarity there. How we started the trip was so we took our vehicles and left them where we are ending our trip, and somebody dropped us off at where we were beginning our trip. So we did not have a vehicle near the trailhead that we started.
You couldn't even
at.
like turn back and yeah. The challenge of the backpack and climbing, I think, was a bit of a surprise, just as far as like how much endurance that would take. But then that was an external challenge. He put down the inner challenge, like the mental, like the inner challenge of tackling the mountain was a takeaway for him. And I think you guys, kind of alluded to that in the story of like that difference between physical limitations and then like the mental toughness that it takes to.
You got to think, I mean, we have all sorts of habits that we wire into our brains of when I feel this way, this is what I do. So when conditions like that are so challenging, I'm so tired, I go sit on the couch, I relax, I enjoy a good meal, I get a sugary snack. I mean, we just have all these sorts of habits, and you're going to feel exhausted and you don't have access to any of those things. Yeah. So now you have to confront what kind of habits have I allowed to stay when I'm faced with that significant of a challenge, because it's not a mild challenge. It's not hard. It is very hard. It's very hard when your heart is racing and you're going uphill to push through that. And you start asking yourself, I mean, I've admitted that in plenty of other stories from the other trips of just like, is this going to kill me? Am I going to die? I think I might be okay dying. I've got a really good insurance policy, like that kind of stuff. It's like that stuff's really happening in your brain.
Just to build on that takeaway, like that experience was kind of the norm for you. And then you talked about like the value of being prepared, even physically. It made you available to help somebody who was facing that. Like you had more resources to give because of the preparation and the training that you went through. The other things that he noted, I think, that's kind of in that vein, is just the value of community, like doing this with people you trust and people like he very much, if he was out there on his own, would not have made it without you guys. Like the reality of being in that place where you're dependent on your community and you can, rely on them to have somebody carry your burdens, those things. Like, obviously that's a major theme through life. Like we need people, we need people to help us whenever we're struggling.
Yeah.
I'd say like all of that was me last year. And that's a private conversation I had with David when we were at day 2 campsite. Cause he was like, man, you're killing it. You're doing really good. And I was like, I feel like I'm just holding everybody back. I'm like, dude, like I was you last year. Like, don't feel bad. We're all in it together. And I was able to reinforce, just like, you're not disappointing anybody. We're not getting as far as we want to, but that doesn't mean we're mad at you or anything. And so like even that morale boost of knowing like, we're not disappointed in him and we're not mad at him. Like we just know it's part of the trip.
Yeah.
It was a really cool reflection for me. And that my biggest takeaway was just almost having like a mirror image of myself from last year and then seeing progress, which was, I think I reflected in the last episode, I felt really disappointed last year. And I think crossing the line and making it back to the trucks was that such a huge redemption piece for me. And I felt like I accomplished something crazy this time. Yeah. So it was really, really awesome.
Because the total trip was 56.5 miles. Austin and I got a bonus 2 miles.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're counting that. If we had to walk all the way back up that hill to get that
1
water,
mile uphill
we're counting
and a
it,
mile
baby.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Austin and I got 58.5.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your survival, on the completion of yet another year of this awesome journey. And hey, for those of you listening and watching, this was, it's always fun to hear these stories, but if you enjoyed this, please let us know. I'm looking at this one. I'm looking at the wrong camera. There we are. Thanks, Ben. So if you like stories like this, like we actually have like some inklings of like, maybe we'll go and record a podcast on trail sometime. I don't think we would tackle a 56-mile trek and try to capture that experience. But hey, if you want to,
let's do it.
Let's do it. What's stopping
well,
us?
you can carry all the recording gear, volunteer. So, but anyway, we would love to hear from you if that's something that you're interested in. Maybe tap that like button, leave a comment, leave a review, let us know. We'd love to know. And I want to say a quick thank you to those of you who have donated to this podcast. You may notice these new mic stands that we're rocking today. That's we were able to get these with the generous donations. Some of the funding from those donations of people who've chosen to support the podcast. And if you're interested in doing that, we greatly appreciate it. That really helps us cover the expenses, helps us improve the production value, and reach more and more people. So brings us to the end. Any final thoughts, any final takeaways from the journey through the mountains this year?
I think one of the things that Andrew just shared is huge. The I was you. And so even just for people listening, so the people that you're around, that you encounter, the encouragement that can come from that, just that simple statement of I was you. And I mean, how often do we look at people and we go, man, I would love to be able to be at that level in whatever area that, that they're thriving in, and go, but I can't do that. That's beyond my reach, whatever. And then the encouragement that can come from just that I was you. And it reminds me of a story, a woman here at one of our campuses who was set free from some, demonic oppression that she was dealing with. And someone came alongside her and said, said that same phrase, I was you.
Yeah.
And there is hope beyond this, and you can turn your life around.
Yeah.
And just the power of that statement of I was you.
Yeah.
So good stuff, Andrew. Come on.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
Never
Not alone. Yeah. Jacob?
I think that's pretty powerful. And I think I underestimate the power of community. And these are really great reminders of I don't think I would enjoy this as much as I enjoy doing all of those things. I don't think I'd enjoy it just being by myself.
Yeah.
Doing it with friends and kind of co-suffering together, even getting a little passive aggressive and short with each other is still absolutely worth it.
Healthy.
That's right.
And doing it together.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you taking the time. And like I said before, just share this. Let us know that you're listening. Let us know what stuck out to you. And we will see you on the next one.